welcome to another episode of Box Office QBs. I'm Gerald, and with me is my friend Ahmed. I'm not doing an Otaku verse right now, however, you can expect an episode of that to come out soon. Actually, a few of them. But right now, what we're actually talking about is a live action movie. Yeah, it's my first time doing one of these ones in a minute. Movie Wolves. We got directed by John Watts. You got some great actors in here, pretty good story. My friend Ahmed was able to get me onto this one. I didn't even know it was coming out. Production produced, or I guess really facilitated by Apple TV. Pretty good film. But Ahmed, what were your first thoughts?
At first, I was like, "Oh, awesome! George Clooney, Brad Pitt. I love these actors. Let's go." And then I kind of watched it, and I liked it. It's one of those movies that I would watch again. But a part of me is like, man, I kind of wish, not that not that these actors would retire, but just that we could see somebody else in these roles.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think like people like George Clooney and Brad Pitt, who again, I love these actors. I think they don't need any more money than they already have. You know what I mean? Like, let's give a hungry actor a chance. You know what I mean?
I can feel that because this is the sixth project that real life friends Brad Pitt and George have worked together after the Ocean's trilogy. So they've worked together quite a bit. John Watts, this is an interesting one for John Watts for me. It's his first time in almost a decade since he has done anything that isn't Spider-Man related. His
Yeah.
last time doing that was I want to say it was Cop Car 2015. So it's been quite a while since John Watts has done a movie that isn't Spider-Man. He does end up in New York again, as we see here. But I would say that like even though, and we'll get into the details like the shots, the story itself, the comedy of it. But I would say first reaction is it's a good movie. It was a fun watch. I don't know that it's something I tell people they need to go see because if you've seen a movie with George and Brad before, you've probably seen this. But it doesn't make it any less fun.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that, like, when you're watching them, you're aware that you're watching George Clooney and Brad Pitt.
Mhm.
So it's like, and you can even tell in their chemistry that they're good friends off screen. Their chemistry works really well together. So for someone who's never seen them work together, it's like it's like, wow, awesome. These two, why haven't they done anything before? Like, no, they've actually done like six movies together. And it's not just Ocean's 11. They've done The Men Who Stare at Goats, or maybe not The Men Who Stare at Goats, but Burn After Reading for sure.
Yes.
And again, it's just like, can we see another duo work together? I'm
Well,
going to take it
do
back
you think
to
that might be why this ended up on Apple TV?
maybe, because I really liked you know, it was a fun watch, like that movie Gray Man with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. A fun watch, not anything award winning, but the storyline was cool. It was entertaining. It kept you engaged, and the chemistry that those two had, it was like, oh, cool. Like it's electric, and so I liked that they were able to play on the fact that both of these guys are seasoned individuals, with their joints cracking and shit like that. But it's one of those movies where a part of me wonders, was it for me or who is this movie for?
Who's this movie for is a good question. Let's jump into some of the things we did like. I mean, we got our first thoughts in. I'll tell you that I did like the shooting, the shots. They had some really good shots in this. The comedy wasn't forced, as you said. It's very obvious that Brad and George have a good off-camera friendship relationship. So I think that their comedy really played off one another. Austin Abrams as the kid, because we don't have a name for him. He was in Euphoria as I want to say Ethan something. Didn't entirely like him in Euphoria, not the actor himself, just a character. So it was a different character arc, a different type of character he plays in this one. I had fun with him. He definitely felt like a fish out of water type of deal. A little bit too stupid at times, but
That's fair.
um, but like I mean, this really gets into it's a murder mystery to an extent, right? Like who did what, and how are we going to get away with this thing, and then how like it keeps unfolding. It's a spiral in the chaos, an Uzumaki, if you will. But it's continuously one thing happens and another thing they have to figure out. They have to figure out another thing. Um,
But what's cool is that in that meant in that there's so many elements. None of them. It's not one of those too many cooks in the kitchen. Everything has a perspective. Everything has a point to it. You can't have this without this happening, and this happening without this happening. So yeah, no, you're spot on. For me, what I liked was the the storyline of how it did have everything for it had something for everybody. If you like drama, there's drama. If you like action, there is some good action scenes. If you like comedy, there's good comedy. There's a good, it's like a buddy cop murder mystery crime, adventure story, if you will. Because even in the genre, whenever you go to Apple TV, one of the genres has adventure. When we think of adventure, we're probably thinking Avatar, not this movie. And I like the play on the concept of a lone wolf, because we all know lone wolves work alone and all that stuff. But sometimes you have to work together. And I think this movie kind of proves that there is no such thing as a one man army.
Yeah, there is no set, but I do want to ask you what do you think separates this from other movies like it?
Dude, that's a good question. What separates this from other movies? It separates it in that it doesn't separate much, to be completely honest. But in the current atmosphere that we've had, this is a breath of fresh air with respect to we've seen a lot of like reboots and sequels. This is an original story, but it does kind of pay homage to the classic films that we liked. Um, the Cat and Mouse, the like movies like Pulp Fiction, um, during a time when you had a bunch of romance movies like Forrest Gump and Titanic. It's nice to kind of see just an original story that doesn't involve, you know, um, a retelling of something. Yes, we have two seasoned actors that, I guess that was the only way they could kind of, get people to watch it. But I think if we can continue on this train of like original storytelling with an asterisk original storytelling, because every story's been told, if we can get to that point, we'll be okay.
I tend to agree, but it's just very. I'm trying to think of something that really makes it stand out, right? The theme, the music is, I mean, it's fine, it's there. The shots are great. I'll say that a lot of the shots are great. The mystery at the beginning is really good, kind of, and then it kind of unfolds and it gets too confusing, I think. As I said, it
Yeah.
kind of just spirals into chaos. You got to follow a lot of different branches, and then you're kind of expected to have been following that. And at the end, you get the two talking over each other, basically explaining everything that just happened.
Hmm.
And okay, fine, but if you had
Yeah.
to explain it, I don't know if that makes it that great. To me, it's a fine movie. I'm not upset I watched it. I enjoyed it. I did. But I just nothing really there that separates it. It's a better time if you're high or drunk or whatever you may partake in, because you'll have a little bit more fun. It's probably a better time with friends and family. You have that little bit of like that suspense in there at times. Um, but John Watts, I think, really showed that he can tell this kind of story, and it's more rooted in realism than he's been doing the past decade. So I think that helped. And I think it really does help Apple TV because it might be one of the better. I mean, Apple TV to me hasn't put out a lot of great stuff. You get Ted Lasso, the morning show was decent for about a season. So I mean, if Apple TV puts out stuff that's good, I'll take it. And for Apple TV's level, I'd say this is a starter. But if we're looking at like movie level, I might bench this, like all
Uh,
movies in general.
I don't know if I would bench it. I'd give it like I'd give it a starter and a half,
Hmm.
just because it was entertaining. I probably would watch it again. Would I go out of my way for it? No. It
Yeah.
was one of those movies that we watched on a whim. I had a friend over, me and the wife and my friend Sabiha. Shout out to Sabiha. We just chilled out and we watched it, and it was entertaining. But it's like the fact that they left the movie open ended. If they would have just left it, I guess left it at the cliffhanger, cool. But then I think they are going to make a sequel, or they're announcing it. And if they do, that's where I think we're going to run into that problem. The fact that, like, there are some movies that just need to die.
Yeah,
No Country for Old Men was one of those movies.
yeah. Like you don't make a sequel for that.
They don't need a sequel for No Country for Old Men.
Yeah,
Uh, the movies that I have on this wall, I'm gonna get more these posters, but none of these movies have a part two. Goodfellas doesn't need a sequel. No Country for Old Men doesn't need a sequel. And my God, Dev Patel, if you watch this or anybody at Universal or Monkey Paws, please don't make a Monkey Man sequel.
yeah.
Please, it
We
doesn't
don't
need.
need more sequels. And honestly, that was another thing I wanted to bring up was that they leave it very open to a sequel.
Yes.
And they even to the point where it's like, we survived this, I'll give you my name. So like we might even get a character name in the second movie. Who the fuck knows?
Who the
But
fuck
like
cares?
yeah, like exactly. Who cares? You didn't do enough world building, I don't think, in this film to really open it up for a sequel. Even though like the main characters are working for like political opponents who were in big campaigns and all this other shit, you hardly ever hear anything. The most you get about the political, and excuse me, Amy Ryan Margaret's character's political leanings is you see an occasional commercial in the background or a flyer or a poster in New York City. There's not a lot of good world building there. On top of that, they kind of solved a lot of issues. Like, they kind of figured out the drug thing.
Yeah.
They fixed the problem, and they threatened the kid and his dad at the end. So it's like you kind of closed off all the things, and then you were just like, oh, we were supposed to leave an opening for a sequel. And I tend to think like I don't see the need for a sequel. If there was world building, a whole organization of these people, and they wanted to go find out why they had the same guys or some other shit, or maybe now the organization is trying to take them out or something. But they didn't even build that organization out in this first movie to really make that a believable jumping point into the next movie. So I do hope they let this one die, because I think you let it die and you let it stew, and it becomes a movie that becomes some people's favorites, a good little watch on a weekend. It's got funny, it's got comedy, but it it isn't something you've seen before, but it is because the story's different, but it's the same idea. We've had this idea before, right?
And there's nothing wrong with that. Every story has been told,
Yeah.
but there's ways of telling that story.
Mhm.
You know, this movie did have a great way of like getting you engaged. You felt like you were watching a movie, but you felt like you were watching a movie with George Clooney and with Brad Pitt,
Mhm.
and that's not something that like we should be kind of like celebrating. We need to be celebrating like innovative storytelling, because this is what helped Hollywood become the golden age, the golden standard. There's a reason why, like when the movie theaters when movie theaters are coming back, you want people to come and have an experience. And like every now and again, these kind of movies are cool, but the world building is getting too much. Like even in TV shows, they're doing it. John Wick, I thought was one of the better sequels because they finally killed off John Wick, and now they're building it again. And they're like,
Yeah,
ah,
or they just let John Wick die. Like you didn't need it after the second one. The first and second one are fine. Like I'm fine with
bro.
it.
Honestly, after
Insidious
the
is the
first
same.
one,
Like
I
I'm not
thought
even an
was
Insidious fan, but Insidious could have stopped after like the second one. Um,
yeah,
I don't even
Jurassic
like it because
World.
like I'm gonna ruin Insidious for everybody watching this. But the demon in Insidious looks like him from Powderpuff Girls mixed with Mr. Krabs,
I haven't even seen the movie,
with like
but
Darth Maul as like a like a pretty
Darth
powerful actor.
Maul. Oh
Like,
my god.
that is what the demon looks like. He is no
Oh
longer scary to you. He is no longer scary to any of us because he looks like a fucking joke. But let's wrap this one up
yeah,
on Wolves. I do think that I'm going to give this one a low starter. So if we had to, I'd give it a 2.75 out of 5 stars, but I'm going low starter for me. It's a fine movie. It's going to get a lower grade if they try to make this into like a 3-part film series. I don't need that. It's fine standalone. You have two really good actors who have really good chemistry. You have some great shots and a decent story. So you can have all of this stuff be true and say it's an okay movie. And that's what
yeah,
it is because we've seen this. It's nothing you haven't seen. It's nothing that's going to wow. That's a crazy story. It is no what's the movie that Netflix did, the knives? Um,
Yeah, Knives Out.
yeah, it's no Knives Out. It's probably on the level of Knives Out 2, if we're honest. Um,
That's fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we're honest, it's fine to watch. It's okay, but like
It's a little unnecessary.
it's a little unnecessary. Yeah, and that's more than fine on my part.
Yeah. No, well said. I still give it a 3.5, 3.5 out of 5. But you took the words out of my mouth.
Awesome, sweet. Well, we want to thank everybody. Make sure you guys are following, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Twitter, TikTok, X, I guess is what Twitter is actually called, Instagram, all that good shit. And make sure to stay tuned. We're gonna have a few Otaku Verse episodes also coming out soon. I'm doing Uzumaki, a new show that Adult Swim is producing and putting on HBO Max each week. And I'm also going to be talking Kaiju number 8 and the recent manga updates as we have finished up the August and September monthly issues, and we'll be getting into October in the coming weeks. So I'm Gerald, and for Ahmed, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys soon.